up 75 cents. And with this action, it's going to go up further. I'm going to do everything I can to minimize Putin's price hike here at home. In coordination with our partners, we've already announced that we're releasing 60 million barrels of oil from our joint oil reserves. Half of that, 30 million, is coming from the United States. And we're taking steps to ensure the reliable supply of global energy. We're also going to keep working with every tool at our disposal to protect American families and businesses.
With that announcement that you just heard by Biden, the United States is clearly raising the stakes in the economic war on Russia. Biden has said that oil imports from Russia will be banned. Moscow has threatened to retaliate by stopping gas exports to all of Europe. The oil war threatens to spiral out of control now, and the global economy is staring at a massive recession because of this.
Missiles, airstrikes, bombings, evacuation. This is the war you see. There is another war raging, the one you don't get to see. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has triggered a meltdown in global economy, the effects of which could last for months. The immediate impact is on crude oil. Brent prices have jumped from $95 on February 24th, when the war started, to $127 in just 13 days. And now US President Joe Biden is banning oil imports from Russia.
We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy. That means Russian oil will no longer be acceptable at U.S. ports, and the American people will deal another powerful blow to Putin's war machine.
US has imposed a ban. Russia says it will shut natural gas supplies to Europe. Moscow warns an escalation in the economic war could push crude prices $300 a barrel. European nations are worried that President Vladimir Putin might well use the gas weapon. The EU nations have the most to lose. While US imported only 8% of its oil supplies from Russia last year, Europe gets 40% of its requirements from Russia.
The increase in the price of oil, gas and raw materials has and will have consequences on our purchasing power. The amount of the heating bill and the cost of certain products is likely to increase further.
The crisis comes at a time when the global economy, coming out of a pandemic, was already bracing from rising inflation. All this has spooked the global markets. The S&P 500 started the week falling 3%, its sharpest decline since October. The Nasdaq Composite dropped 3.6%. It is now around 20% below its November highs. Back home, the Sensex on Monday dropped 2.7%, or nearly 1,500 points, to hit a 7-month low of 52,843. While it recovered a bit on Tuesday, the future is uncertain. Add to this the fall in rupee's value. The currency breached the 77 mark against dollar this week. The rising oil prices and drop in rupee's value are bound to impact India's budget numbers as well. The world is in for tough times ahead. Bureau Report, India Today.
All of the sanctions and boycotts is also hurting Russia big time. Its oligarchs are losing their billions, and top brands and companies have also halted operations in Russia. The latest is the likes of Starbucks, McDonald's, who've said that they're pulling out of Russia. Luxury and high street brands have also shut shop now in Moscow. And we get you a ground report on that.
All-out Russian attack bleeding Ukraine. As war intensifies, Russia feels the heat too. But away from the death, destruction and fire, Moscow is silently bleeding too. While Putin is not personally hit, Punitive global sanctions and business boycotts have begun to bite. Russians no longer have access to global super luxury apparel brands like Louis Vuitton, Zara, Hermes, Chanel, who are dumping Russia in droves. Once the hub of super luxury brands, high streets of Kuznetsny Most and Stolishnikov Perelok are now empty. Nike, Puma, Adidas have all stopped operations across Russia.
More and more Western companies are withdrawing from the Russian market. Today there was an announcement that Nike, Zara, Massimo Dutti and even Gucci and Versace would stop providing their Russian customers with their services.
British car maker Bentley, American brands Ford and Coca-Cola are no longer operating in Russia. Global furniture brand IKEA, which shut its shop, saw a massive rush at its outlets in Moscow on the last day of operation, as Russians rushed to own whatever was available. With reigning sanctions from global entities, it's the Russians who are paying the cost of war in their own country. Putin's alleged cronies, the Russian super rich, are bleeding billions. After losing yachts and private jets and their assets getting frozen, crippling losses now stare the oligarchs in their face. Some of the most influential billionaires from Putin's inner circle have been hit the hardest as the world tightens curbs. India today has now gained access to the seized Lady M, the super yacht of Russian oligarch Alexei Mordashov. The super luxury yacht is now moored in Imperia.
We are in the harbor, and this behind me is the $65 million yacht of Alexei Mordashov, one of the richest oligarchs of Russia. It's a 52 meters boat, and its name is Lady M, in honor of his wife. This is one of the yachts that has been taken by European authorities following the sanctions imposed to Russian millionaires.
The global boycott and curbs have reduced Moscow to virtually a global pariah. But can they make Putin change his mind? Bureau Report, India Today.
And coming up, on the other side of a very, very short break here on India Today, we're focusing on the evacuation operations by India. The Operation Ganga, which is to evacuate all stranded nationals in Ukraine, has entered its last leg with the focus on students who were in Sumy. More details on that coming up in just a bit.
As Russia declared war on Ukraine, as the world was plunged again into crisis, with the only Indian team in the real war zone.
This is Mariupol. You hear a series. Hear this sound.
I will show you a quick, so to say, bombshell room tour.
I can smell the gunpowder in the air.
And without pause, India Today totally dominates viewership and smashes the competition. When it's the world's biggest news story, there's only one gold standard of journalism.
International isolation aside, Russia is also facing allegations of war crimes. The International Criminal Court in The Hague is pointing towards similar allegations and possibly filing a lawsuit against Russia for war crimes committed in the ongoing fight with Ukraine. Amnesty International, which is a human rights organization, also analyzed digital evidence, including photographs, videos, and satellite imagery of these attacks in Ukraine. They have verified violations of international law which could amount to war crimes. There's horror in war, loss of human lives, and guns fired with practically no rule whatsoever. But accountability exists, and so does war crimes. But what are these violations we're really talking about? Isn't everything fair in love and war, as they say? Well, not quite. Modern warfare has certain laws to keep, according to international law. It's usually referred to as the law of war by the international community. The laws of war regulate the conditions for initiating war and conduct of warring parties. The laws of war define sovereignty, nationhood, states and territories, occupation, and other critical terms of law. It was Henry Dunant, the founder of the Red Cross, who began the process of codifying these customs into international humanitarian laws. But can a war be justified really? Well, according to the international standards, a war is only just if it is fought for a reason that is justified and that carries sufficient moral weightage. The country that wishes to use military force must demonstrate that there is just reasons and cause to do so. Now, as we see in modern times, wars to defend the innocent are increasingly regarded as just. The clearest example of a just cause is self-defense against an aggressor. For example, when an enemy has crossed your borders and invaded your territory. And other justifications here include assisting a friendly nation which has been invaded, when there is human rights violations, and to punish an act of aggression. Laws of war also dictate what is considered as war crimes. There are international standards for war crimes which are outlined in international treaties like the Geneva Conventions of 1949 and the Rome Statute.
This is Ukraine's true danger zone. Up close and fearless in Ukraine's combat zone.
You are watching India.
#1 in war coverage. #1 in election coverage. Be it war or the state of war. Any big topic, India Today TV is the leader.
Welcome back. India's Operation Ganga to evacuate its stranded nationals in Ukraine entered into the last leg. 700 students who were stranded in Sumy for the last 2 weeks, they're finally on their way to Poltava, from where they'll board a train to, another part of Ukraine and then fly out from one of the neighboring countries. Our next report tells you more.
India's mega evacuation mission from Ukraine, Operation Ganga, enters the final stretch.
Is it 10th day of war?
700 stranded medical students have been rescued from the war-torn Ukrainian city of Sumy. The Indian nationals have been taken out in buses to Poltava, another city less affected by the conflict.
सुमी में इस समय हमारे कोई कल रात को 700 बच्चे थे, पर 694 एग्जैक्ट, और मैंने आज सुबह जब कंट्रोल रूम में बात की, वो इस समय अभी आपके इस इंटरैक्शन से पहले मैंने they were already in buses and moving out of Sumy to a place called Poltava, जो सेफ है. फिर पोल्टोवा से आगे लाया जाएगा.
The Red Cross and Indian Embassy officials have accompanied the convoy. From Poltava, students are all set to board trains to western Ukraine to finally fly out from one of the neighboring countries.
There is around 600 students here in Sumy, only Indian students. And we are just requesting government day by day that please evacuate us as soon as possible. They just told us that to stay in your position and don't travel right now because the traveling is very risky right now to Poland or Romanian border.
Indian students in Sumy had been seeking help from the Indian government for the last 2 weeks.
We need our government right now!
The evacuation was made possible after Russia and Ukraine agreed to set up humanitarian corridors to rescue besieged citizens. The breakthrough came after Prime Minister Narendra Modi held discussions with both Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday.
Говорив із прем'єр-міністром Індії паном Моді, але є речі, які вирішуються не у переговорах, які не залежать безпосередньо від нас, а тільки від людяності, яку має перемогти у провідних столицях, має перемогти страх, має перемогти будь-які вигоди. І тоді ми побачимо, що українське небо безпечне.
India has evacuated over 15,900 students from Ukraine through 76 flights out of neighboring countries. With Russia set to intensify attacks on Ukrainian cities, the Narendra Modi government has advised all remaining Indian nationals to exit the country. With Polomi Saha in Delhi and Gaurav Sawant and Geeta Mohan in Kyiv, Ukraine, Bureau Report, India Today.
And with that, it's time for us to slip into a short break here on India Today. Stay with us. We're going to continue getting you all the latest updates coming in from Ukraine on day 14 of the war.
I'm in Ukraine, a student. I have my pet dog. Even my dog is very stressed out about it. He's really scared about all the bombings happening. He's crying all the time. I bought him last February. He's a rescue puppy here. I bought him as a rescue puppy. He's a rescue dog. So I asked them if they can issue an emergency certificate. I can get him quarantined in India every